Coming up, what an excellent day for hospitals. Well, howdy folks, and welcome to Minute 37 of the Exorcist Minute, a show where we endeavor to examine, extrapolate, and excavate the Exorcist minute by terrifying minute. My name is Lester Ryan Clark.
And I'm Keenan Diaz.
And we'll be your holy guides on this journey through what some have called the scariest movie of all time. Okay, so our minute begins with Dr. Klein saying, "Goddamn cunt."
Lester.
It says it in the script. I have to say it.
You're just such a nice Catholic boy, and listen to you.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, our minute ends with Karras and his uncle entering the nurse's office of Bellevue Hospital.
Bellevue Hospital, yeah. Just a great, joke-filled, light-hearted romp this minute from beginning to end. It's getting harder and harder to make jokes about this stuff, but we're sure as hell going to try. That's our promise here at the Exorcist Minute.
If they don't like jokes, they can go listen to some other podcasts.
Right. Or maybe just watch The Exorcist.
Oh, yeah.
But let's move away from this hopeless hospital and get back to the top of our minute where we are in a hopeless hospital. Wow. Okay, so both these scenes feature hospitals in a not-so-great light. Are we making a commentary here about the ineptitude of hospitals or doctors?
Well, to put my tourist film critic hat, that's where we're looking at the author of the film, which the French film critics in the 1950s decided was the director. So we look at the director, and I'd say that, potentially we're looking at the ineptitude of systems in general. So Friedkin's previous film, The French Connection, is about the ineptitude of the police department, to a lesser extent, say, the newspapers, the media who doesn't quite understand how the police work. And no heroes. Everything's messy.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the other thing I want to point out before we move on from Dr. Klein is that this first Dr. Klein sequence, of course, is from TVYNS.
Oh.
The version you've never seen.
TVYNS. Oh, you just sprung that on me in this episode. The version TVYNS. Okay.
Yeah, that's the version you've never heard of initialized like that. Yeah. So
the
this
acronym
is the acronym you've never heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is stuff that was cut out.
TAYNH. No, I'm
TAYNH. Yes.
That's the acronym for the acronym you've never heard.
Right. So again, if you buy this on Blu-ray to watch or on Amazon, it's called the director's cut. In the theaters in 2000, this was called the version you've never seen.
Right.
So this was stuff that was cut out. This whole sequence of Dr. Klein at the beginning with the nurse with the coffee filter on her head, with Reagan spinning around.
Right.
We did not see that in 1973. So the original version had Bellevue as being this terrible hospital before. We see, a much friendlier but still inept hospital here. Yeah. So now in 2000, Friedkin has put this back, and some people say it's very helpful. In Roger Ebert's review of the not the remake, but the director's cut that we've seen here of 2000, he says that this is one of the only things that he prefers to have added in to the new cut. Yes, he says that some of the other scenes that we haven't quite looked at are either neutral or hurtful, and this is the one that makes the most sense to put in.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so this is his only, like, he's allowed for this one to be. It's like this one is good.
Yes, and I like this sequence a lot. What do you think about it as a whole before we move off of it?
I do like this sequence. It's news to me about what you say about Roger Ebert, because there is an added scene later on. We'll get to it that I think is crucial. I think it's one that Blatty fought for tooth and nail, and I'm glad we have it in there. I think
I know what you would mean. This is a conversation really near the end of the film, then, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. But wow, so he doesn't even like that one.
I think that in his review, which you could look at, which one of the things I like about Roger Ebert, the reason he became my favorite critic is because he was one of the first critics to have his entire archive online. So you could look and compare his original 4-star review of the original release of The Exorcist, and then you could look at the comparison. And I think that, as he's watching it without like a brochure that Warner Brothers gave them of what the changes were.
Right.
He doesn't pick up on some of the changes at all. So I don't know if he even mentions that one. I'll have to look at that review again. But certainly there's the most famous add-on to here that the fans were really clamoring for. He says it's distracting, and we'll talk about that.
Yes.
There's a little debate about that. So he says there's this scene, that scene, and then the ending of The Exorcist, the new cut, which I really do not like, and we'll debate about that later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yes. Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay, so more. So
he noticed folks. That for sure. Yeah. So I guess So we'll. I guess I don't know why we're being cagey about these spoilers in case, but
right.
But so if you want to skip ahead for 10 seconds, he does not like the very famous spider walk sequence.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Which is people debate about that, and he is with me and does not like the ending. And then he is neutral about the changes with Father Dyer at the end.
Interesting. Okay.
And then he says this is the only good one.
Wow.
So he doesn't remember that there's new footage at the beginning of the film where we start with Georgetown rather than starting directly from the rock. Right. And I don't think he even picks up on that conversation between Father Marin and Father Karras that you're talking about.
Yeah, and that's the one. Yeah, that's the one you like. The one that I'm. Yeah. Interesting. Wow. Okay. So much more to come, folks. Stay with us, and we'll definitely talk about all of those scenes. But yeah, actually, Keenan, I'm very, very glad you brought up that. Yeah, this whole kind of front and Chris and Reagan hospital scene was added. Yeah, it's good that we have that on record. Okay, so back to our minute. Right after Klein says, "Sorry, Mom, goddamn cunt,
Lester."
Oh my God. We cut to Ellen Burstyn's face. And I love the very subtle acting that she does here. Again, this reminds me of what Sir Michael Caine says in his book, Acting in Film, and what he demonstrates in that YouTube workshop I was talking about by the same name. The camera sees everything. The camera is the most attentive audience member there will ever be. In fact, I think the way Sir Michael Caine puts it, he says it's the most attentive, devoted lover. It sees every movement, every twitch, every blink, every hair on your head, every non-movement. Because not moving, folks, remaining perfectly still as a reaction to something is still a reaction. In fact, it can be a very powerful reaction. It's actually one of my favorites. I love doing a scene where someone else drops a big reveal, something that's supposed to make me angry or scared or sad, and the camera cuts back to me, and instead of erupting into a blind rage, I'm just perfectly still. My eyes are trained on the other actor. And later, people will come up to me, the director, the camera person, or even the other actor, and they'll be like, I could feel the anger coming off of you. It was palpable. But really, it's this wonderful magician's trick. I guess I'm giving away the magic here, but yeah, oftentimes, whatever emotion we have as the audience member, we will project onto that actor, especially if they do their job. They give us this blank canvas to work with.
Right. And a lot of Soviet film theory is built upon the same idea with editing, this idea of the Kuleshov effect, which you might have heard, with do you know this, where we use a emotionally ambiguous shot of an actor, and depending on what we cut to, because the actor is giving us a real emotional response, but it's ambiguous. So it's actually a blank slate. So when we cut to him looking at a bowl of soup, we think he's hungry. And if we use the exact same footage and then cut to a shot of usually the thought experiment, it's like seeing him watching a little girl play with a doll, then that same expression, which again is emotionally ambiguous, that we felt was about soup and hunger, and now it's about fatherly feelings and nostalgia and all of that.
Right.
That the blank slate, because of the way that the film medium works, we the audience projects onto the actor everything that they're feeling. Right.
Yes.
I think Michael Caine talks a lot about in his book about working with directors who don't understand as well as he does about the camera, and how, sometimes the director will be like, I'm not seeing what you're doing, Michael, and he says, well, where were you? Because I'm acting for the camera.
Right.
The camera's over there. So you couldn't possibly see what I was working with.
Yes. and that's it. Yeah, like the camera is like this magic device that it can see even better than human beings, I think.
Right.
And so when we're looking at the dailies, when we're looking at the rushes, when we're looking at what we have filmed, we're going to notice stuff that we as the director or we as the other actor didn't even notice when we were like literally there on set. We were physically closer than the camera, but we just don't have the eye that the camera has.
Yeah. I like this transition that Ellen Burstyn does, right? Where she is just taking it in. It's a neutral slate. And then it very slowly turns into all sorts of colors, right?
Yeah.
It's embarrassment, also kind of pride at the same time of her daughter, right? It's shock, it's embarrassment, it's and then it's this, shared moment with the doctor. Yeah, all this really colorful, wonderful stuff.
Yeah. And on top of that, like on top of all of that, like, you're like, well, okay, I'm in a public place, I'm with a person, like, so I can't just let my like initial reaction just like, burst out, right? So she's also like composing herself at the same time as she's like living all of these feelings. And there you go, folks. The movie did exactly what or we did exactly what the movie wanted us to do. Like, we're putting all these feelings on top of, Ellen Burstyn's reaction, right? Now, speaking of reactions, after, oh wait, no, I don't want to go past this. So you mentioned Soviet film theory again, folks. If you've listened, we've talked about Soviet film theory before on this show when we were talking about the statues, right? Pazuzu, and it was what was it? It was thesis, antithesis, synthesis, right?
That's
with the human, animal, and then Pazuzu as the combination of those two.
Right.
So,
the Soviets would call it dialectical, right?
Oh.
To see what the opposite, to see what something is, you need to see what the opposite of it is, and then we see the combination of them. So, how do you experience dryness without, or I'm sorry, how do you experience wetness without knowing what dryness is? You never know what dryness is.
Yeah, folks. I hope you have a notepad open and you're taking notes, because this will be on the test.
Yeah, I think we're lucky at UNLV Film because we have one of our professors, Jason Edmiston, is incredibly knowledgeable about Soviet film theory, and a lot of times they teach it in film schools, but it's very quickly the thing that you want to get away from as fast as possible because it feels cold and dry. And we're lucky that we have someone who I think has infected me with his love of it, because it's not cold and dry; it's very emotional. But they happen to name it before any of the other countries are working on film theory. The Soviets are, and they come up with names like dialectical, and that makes it seem like, it's really heady. But this is the basis of how film editing works, especially even in narrative-based, very serious or very emotional films like The Exorcist.
Right. In Soviet film theory, film analyzes you. Another deep cut, folks. What was his name?
Yakov Smirnoff.
Yeah. Okay. We got Gallagher, we got Yakov.
I think that's his real name, but he comes to America and he's like, my name is Yakov Smirnoff, so of course I need to be a stand-up comedian.
The only job available to me is comedian.
Right.
Okay, all right. Okay, so speaking of reactions, after this reaction shot from Burstyn, we get an over-the-shoulder shot where we're looking at Klein, and I swear, Keenan, does he look like he's having a laugh? Like, if I didn't know any better, I'd say what's happening here is that something happened right before Friedkin yelled action, and we're catching the tail end of that in Klein's face. We know Friedkin likes to do crazy things. I don't think it's happened yet, but there are some reaction shots in this film that are a direct result of Friedkin firing a gun in the studio to startle the actors. And this almost seems like he did something here, like he told a joke or something, and Barton Heyman, the actor who plays Klein, is maybe reacting to that. Like, it's a weird, like they're trying not to laugh. Like, both of them, you look at it, right? It's a weird reaction.
I like it. I'm not sure that it's one of those. I know what you mean, like using something before action or after cut, which is not out of bounds. I think film actors understand that that's, fair game, not firing a gun next to someone's ear,
right?
To getting some, but I don't know. I think that this is a real actorly moment. I think that they've discovered it together. It's maybe weird because it's unexpected, right? Because this is very serious. Your daughter said this awful thing, but now there's a bunch of YouTube videos, where you can find their parents like their children have accidentally said some swear word, and it's one of the most like popular YouTube subgenres of say that thing you said again. Shit. Like, oh no, the baby said shit. Let's have the baby do it again and again and again.
Right. Yeah. We happened upon this at Christmas dinner. Actually, we had my little godson, so my brother and his wife and my nephew, my godson, came to have dinner with us, and we didn't film it and show it for all the world to see. But he's eating and he's talking about like all the foods, and he's talking about all of the utensils, and he has a little bit of trouble saying fork. And it sounds a lot like something else. And he just loved talking about the fork and just saying it again and again. And we couldn't help ourselves. We chuckled. So yeah, you're right, actually, Keenan. Maybe this is a result of, let's not think that, it's all, Friedkin behind the scenes firing guns and telling stupid jokes and, I don't know, making people wear ice packs, to emulate feeling cold. Let's give these actors some credit. And maybe this is a genuine moment of, this doctor had to say this word and repeat what this little girl said. And they're both kind of just like a little bit surprised into laughter by it. Right? Yeah.
And again, not to say that using those moments before action or after cut is bad. Sometimes you find some very interesting things there.
Right.
The other stuff, the playing tricks on actors, I don't necessarily agree with.
Correct. Yeah. So at this news that her daughter is now swearing and using language that she's never used before, and actually, okay, pause right here, because I just remembered something. And Chris jumps to this conclusion in the book as well. Keenan, whom do we know that is close to this family that, in the book at least, has been hanging around the house, hanging around Chris, cursing up a storm, cursing up a very British storm, much more liberal with certain words that we Americans may blanch at, but which he might use as, say, a noun, an adjective, a verb, an adverb, and probably, if he tries, a conjunction.
And I think you can do that. Yeah, I'll work on that.
Yeah, right? And this person we discovered in a previous scene, Reagan is coming to terms with potentially seeing as a permanent father figure. I just thought of this now, and I'm so proud of it. Keenan, tell me if I'm crazy. In the book, Chris and Reagan are on the car ride home, and we get a little peek into Chris's mind, and she concludes that Reagan picked the swearing up from Burke. And she's annoyed, and she's going to have herself a word with Burke, because sweet as he is, he has no filter sometimes, and now her daughter is swearing in the exact same way that he swears. Not only that, Chris has additional information, and we have additional information too. We know that Reagan thinks Burke might be her new father. Okay, so that's the book and the movie stuff. Now, this is my addition. Now, let's put ourselves in Reagan's position for just a second. Let's forget that this is all bullshit and that it's actually Captain Howdy, right? We know that. We know that already. But for this, let's actually just imagine there's no demon and Reagan is a distressed child dealing with the trauma of divorce and now facing the possibility of having a new dad. A new dad in the person of someone you like. This is Uncle Burke. Remember, in the book, Uncle Burke, big movie director Uncle Burke, stopped directing his movie so that he and the rest of the cast and crew could sing Happy Birthday to you. And they gave you a cake. Uncle Burke did that. Uncle Burke shut down production so that you could have your birthday. Real Dad didn't do that. Where was Real Dad on that day? Real Dad, Howard, was out on a yacht playing captain. Captain Howard.
Captain Howard.
Captain Howard. Meanwhile, Uncle Burke is giving you the best birthday.
Right.
So now I'm thinking, and again, this isn't in the book or the movie, but again, just a fun little think piece. But what if Chris is putting the pieces together in this way, saying, Reagan likes Uncle Burke, but she's also scared he's going to steal me away. And now she's acting like him. Reagan is acting like Burke. And maybe Reagan doesn't understand that Burke is complicated, right? Like all human beings, right? Like all human beings, Burke has flaws.
Right. No. I thought complicated meant gay. I thought that was your code word for gay. What's he like? Oh, he's complicated. Oh, just my type.
No, I wasn't alluding to that. But I mean, there's also, right, there's that as well, right? But that's like, Reagan's not even thinking of that.
Right.
But she's also not understanding. So what I mean by complicated is like, when children look up to an adult, they sort of forget that adults are human beings, right? Like they have flaws, right? So like Burke's swearing, she would just kind of lump in with all of the other stuff that is Burke, right? She sees that she sees
that's cool about him, right?
That's cool about, right?
Yeah.
She sees Uncle Burke is a good guy, and so everything Uncle Burke does must be okay, right? Because he's a grown-up, and grown-ups have it all figured out, right? So swearing must be okay. Swearing is fun because Uncle Burke does it, and Uncle Burke is good.
And now, my mom likes Uncle Burke.
Right? Yeah. So
can I mention something about this? So sure. I like the idea of Uncle Burke. So I'm from Hawaii, and You might have some of your parents' friends that you call uncle or aunt without knowing, they're not really related to you, but
they're not blood related. Yeah.
Right. A lot of people have that in Hawaii. That's true of everybody. You call everybody uncle and auntie. And like even at the store, instead of saying thank you, ma'am, if it's an older lady, you'll say thank you, auntie. Like she's the cashier or the chef behind the counter or what have you. Thank you, auntie. Thank you, uncle. And I think one of the cutest version of this I've ever had is my cousin, his parents, let's say my cousin Josh and his mom, Rochelle, she had a long-term boyfriend. And so it was, hey, this is your Uncle Ray, call him Uncle Ray, right? So it was Uncle Ray, Uncle Ray. And I was there at their wedding when finally Rochelle and Ray got married. And so Josh was like, hey, can I get anybody a drink? He's like a teenage, he's trying to help out as now his parents' wedding. He says, Mom, can I get you anything? Uncle Ray, oh, I can't call you Uncle Ray anymore, right? Uncle Ray, oh, Dad. And I remember that I saw the moment where this kid called his dad for the first time.
Right.
It was, so sweet, so beautiful. Everyone went, oh, yes, Dad.
What an awesome moment, right? To have witnessed, to have captured. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to speak to what you're saying, Keenan, I mean, like, both you and I had taken Japanese in the past, right?
Oh, right.
And over there, right, like it's the way that you address strangers kind of like depends upon their age. And you might call an older woman or like, let's say an older girl, you might say big sister, right? You might say one-san, right? Like even if they're not related to you, right? You'll call them big sister. And then like someone who is slightly older, you might call like auntie or uncle. And I remember my first Japanese teacher kind of like making a joke about the first time that she was referred to not as big sister, but as auntie. And she was like, that was a moment in my life that I will never forget, right? This little girl walks up to me and it's like, because like all her life she had been, big sister, right?
Right.
But it was like, hey, auntie, can you get this for me? And it's like, oh, okay. I guess I'm auntie now. Wow.
Yeah, that's one of the things you notice when you learn just enough Japanese to know that the subtitles in your anime sub are wrong.
Yeah.
Then you feel really great about yourself. Like in at the end of My Neighbor Totoro, so at the end of My Neighbor Totoro, the sisters get lost. The little sister has gotten lost, and she's sort of kind of run away, but not really. She doesn't quite know what she's doing. And then everyone's looking for her. The Totoro helps the older sister find her. And in the English subtitles, it's like, "Oh, you sweet girl, I found you again." And of course, in the Japanese, it's "You stupid idiot." She says, "You baka little girl," right? Doesn't quite translate for the Americans.
Oh my goodness, right? But like again, right? Context is king, right? So like over there, right? The word baka, like we look at baka and we're like, oh my God, such an insult. But like it's a thing that kids say to each other. I mean, it's a thing that parents say to kids. It's it's like it is at the same time, it means like stupid or fool, but it also means like you silly Billy, right?
Right, exactly.
It can be that as well, right? And that's the trouble that you get into when you try to do these direct word for word kind of Google translates. You forget that culture is also a part of it.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, yeah. We've fallen into the Totoro trap. Totoro. Already have a trap in this episode. That's kind of this trap leads to the other trap. You have to go through the Totoro trap to get to the other trap.
He's your guide into the other trap.
Yes. We might save this for a little bit later, but do you know about the theory about Totoro? Like the hidden
that
thing?
He is the angel of death.
Yes. And that the girls are like dead for like a large chunk of the movie.
And he decides that they've earned their place back on Earth, so he sends them back to the parents.
Oh,
they're like worthy of not dying, right?
Oh, I didn't know he sends them back.
Oh, what's your interpretation of
Well,
it?
I just thought like there's a moment in the film where they go off and they die, and we're following them, and like for the rest of the film, none of the adults interact with them. They don't notice when they speak. They don't like look at them.
That's true. Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I didn't know that they came back.
So they just dead the whole time, you think?
I think so. Well, I don't know. See, now I'm going to have to go. I wonder if there's a Ghibli minute. I have to.
There must be.
There must be. But yeah, I don't remember the ending very well, but yeah, they may have. Hey, maybe it has a happy ending.
The ending is they go to the hospital to see the mom, and they leave her a piece of corn that's an ear of corn that says, from to the best mom or something like that.
Right.
But yeah, the mom and dad don't see them up there. We just see the corn.
Okay, so they don't see the girls. So I mean geez. Okay, well, we'll explore this in a later minute. But yeah,
I am Totoro, angel of death.
Right. Yeah.
Look upon my works, they might and despair.
Hey, let's go. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, oh my God. I think Miyazaki has denied this. I don't know. We'll have to.
Sure.
Wouldn't you? Okay. So back to this. So this was just like my little thought experiment, right? Mm-hmm. Uncle Burke, right? And this kind of like love-hate competitive relationship that Reagan or that Chris could think that Reagan is having, right? Mm-hmm. With Uncle Burke, because she doesn't know about the demon, of course, right? And so, hey, from Chris's point of view, this is a mental, emotional problem. Mm-hmm. Can these goddamn doctors forget their turf war with psychiatrists for just a second and refer my daughter to someone who can actually help her?
She asked like 4 times in this scene, it's a psychiatrist problem. And Dr. Klein just pushes her off every time.
Yeah. And like in the book, it's a little bit more clear. It's like an ego thing. Like doctors are in a turf war with psychiatrists and they shit all over psychiatrists. Like, oh, psychiatry this, psychiatry that. Like as if like they have less respect for psychiatry than they do for exorcisms.
Right.
Right. And it's bonkers. Like living in the world that we live in now. Right. Mm-hmm. With where mental health has kind of advanced. Right. It's not perfect, but like, mental health is we're looking a little bit more at it today. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's crazy. Like she's been asking for this from the beginning, right? Nobody fucking listens to her. Mm-hmm. Carl won't listen about the traps. Burke won't listen about the scripts. These goddamn doctors won't listen to her about her daughter. And spoilers, guys, there's a priest later on who doesn't listen to her about an exorcism. Like, Can she have one person on her side, please? Well, I mean, there was one person on her side, wasn't there, right? Like always on her side through thick and thin. But now something's wrong with her, right? Yeah. That's the whole problem, right? But okay, so back to this office. Just to wrap up this scene, Chris asks again about a psychiatrist, and again she gets shot down.
I think this last way he shoots it down is very interesting. So she asks one last time for a psychiatrist, and he says the best reason is often the simplest. So he gives a version of Occam's razor, but not quite. He actually changes it. So dictionary.com says that Occam's razor is that the simplest explanation is most likely the correct one.
Okay.
So that's what he's trying to imply here, but he says that the simplest explanation is usually the best one, which is not exactly what Occam's razor is. So he's like trying to brush it off and say, well, no, the simplest thing is Ritalin. And that's the best idea, as opposed to, but he says it in the format of Occam's razor, right?
Yeah.
So the simplest explanation is most likely the correct one. Even Occam and people who ascribe to this idea, this axiom, leave room that it's not always the correct one. But that the basic idea with Occam's razor, right, is that the solution that doesn't require you to add more suppositions onto it is probably the most logical one.
I like how he's misquoting this, because this is a doctor who misdiagnoses and misquotes with his little, Melamed diploma in the back.
Right, but it's just if I say that it's a medical thing, that's the simplest. So that let's treat that like it's the best solution.
Right. Okay, so. And yeah, he wraps this up by telling Chris not to worry, to which Chris replies, how? Mm-hmm. And I like how we cut there. We don't get an answer, right? I don't even think he did answer her. I think he just looks
at her and was like, woman, look at my diplomas.
Do you see this? Doctors Are Us right over there, right next to my toy car. Right. But yeah, so for now, we got to leave Chris almost exactly at the half point of this minute, and we cut now to a scene which is almost a mirror opposite, where the last scene was bright and colorful. This medical facility is dark and dungeon-like, almost subterranean, right? Fitting with our guy, Father Karras, whom we met so many minutes ago under the earth, right? On that subway platform. We are back with him now as he makes his way deeper and deeper into this horrible labyrinthine place. And he's got his uncle with him, almost like his guide, like how Dante had Virgil, guiding him through the different circles of hell in Dante's Inferno. That was kind of like what sprang to mind first for me. And then, moving along this track, it struck me on this viewing, folks, as so many new things are occurring to me. Keenan, have you ever heard of the harrowing of hell?
No, that's a new one for me.
Okay. I feel like it might be a new one for a lot of people. I don't know. I mean, maybe our demographic knows about the harrowing of hell, right? This is The Exorcist. So, but I can feel us straying from the path now, and I hope our listeners and my co-host will indulge me, but I think we've fallen into another trap here. This is not the Shakespeare trap. This is not the Marlowe trap. This is not the Dickens trap, and it's definitely not the Totoro trap. This is the hell trap.
Oh, yes. That sounds like the worst one.
This is the worst trap, right? And folks, I knew we were going to have to talk about hell eventually, but I didn't expect it so soon. Why? Because you associate hell with the devil, with fire, with the afterlife. You don't think about hell as a state of mind. Mm-hmm. But folks, Father Karras, our dear friend Damien Karras, is in hell. Even as we are watching him in this scene enter a metaphorical hell in the shape of this horrible hospital, he's also bringing hell with him in his own mind. And maybe that's why this rescue, this harrowing, doesn't work out. So yeah, let's talk about this. The harrowing of hell, right?
So harrowing means rescue?
Well, actually, I'm not quite sure.
Okay.
I think in the same way we talk about like the passion of the Christ, in that sense, passion means like suffering.
Suffering.
Right? Yeah.
Right, that's the Yoda. Suffering.
Yeah. And we talk about like, oh, it was a harrowing journey. Right. And I've never, this is how we learn language, I guess, but like, I've never actually looked it up, but I always took that as like, it means like, you're going through something like really heavy. Right. Yeah. So in Christian theology, this is the name for the period of time between Jesus' crucifixion and his resurrection. Apparently, and I never knew about this bit of the story until I was in college, this is supposedly when Jesus goes down to hell to free everyone and bring them back up to heaven. And there's all these depictions of him, these paintings of him down there with golden keys to open up the gates and let everyone out. And sometimes he's like walking over Satan like a doormat, or Satan's like a dragon, and Jesus has the dragon's mouth propped open and everyone is marching out, right? This was such a new concept for me. I didn't know about this part of the story till I was older. Like, as a kid, this was just never brought up in my religious upbringing, and I guess because for kids, it's a little too heavy, right? But like even my religious friends, it's like went to, Sunday school with, like recently, like we were, attending virtual mass for Christmas. And the priest did the whole, like he was crucified, died, and he descended into hell, portion of it, right? Like this is a part that he reads. And my friend, I was there with him and he was like, I never knew about that part. So I guess maybe, this is a part that's like not really talked about a lot.
Yeah, I only know about it. So it's the period after he is crucified. Right. So it is accomplished, or it is finished, and then the next we hear about it typically is when the stone is pulled back and he's So like basically the part that I know is from the point of view not from Jesus, but from the women who find him, and then from the apostles.
Precisely, yeah. And I think that's kind of like the focus. It's like even, Easter holiday, right? Mm-hmm. And you go to church and, they tell the story, or in all of the, the film depictions of it, right? We are with the people who are, grieving for Jesus. Right. We're mourning. We're like, oh my gosh, he's gone. And, and we don't know yet, the big reveal, right? That he comes back. And so we're all sad. And then he comes back and it's this great, revelation. And it, like, it's like this happy thing. It's like, hey, I was away for a while, but now I'm back, right? And I thought the big surprise was like, I have defeated death, right? Like death is no longer a problem, right? Like that's kind of like how I interpreted it. But like, I guess, okay, so according to the theology, he's going down to hell to save, I guess what you would call like the vanilla sinners, right? The people that were good, right? And, you know, like, but they just went to hell because, you know,
they weren't baptized, the unbaptized children, or everyone has original sin, right?
Right, original sin, right? And that's also a thing I didn't learn about until way later, is that according to the theology, before Jesus died, everyone just went to hell because original sin, because Adam and Eve and the apple and all of that. And, you know, mankind is, you know, we've doomed ourselves because of this. So no matter how good you were, no matter how much of a good and pious life you led, you die before Jesus died in 33 AD and boom, straight to hell. And you got to wait around until he comes down there to bail you out.
Right.
And that means, Keenan, that means Adam, Eve, Moses, Abraham, talking about Abrahamic, David, all of them were down there.
Yeah.
And
that you know, as the in my atheist groups, like people who were like, what are you saying? Like Confucius went to hell? I mean, right. You know, right? Like really wise, wonderful people. Yeah.
Right.
Confucius went to hell. The Buddha went to hell.
Right. And Dante has a whole thing about that, right? Like, because Virgil is his guide down in hell, because he, like, and all of the people that Dante admires, right? All of these philosophers and everything like that, they're in like a really, really, you know, light kind of like, you know, easy, you know, chill level of hell, right? Because they're not bad people, but they're also not, like, they also died before Jesus died.
Right. Well, I mean, Socrates, right? Socrates was great, but he probably belongs in hell. He probably got into some serious shit.
Right. But another. Okay, we're in the hell trap already. Now we've fallen. Oh no, deeper into the Dante trap. My favorite thing about
some
Dante,
music there.
Yeah, we got to get some Dante music. My favorite thing about Dante, Keenan, do you know who belongs in the deepest circle of hell, according to Dante?
Is it not Judas Iscariot?
Oh, yes. Okay, so there's a whole thing, like, yeah, okay, I wasn't even going to go there, but yeah. So in Dante, right, Satan is in the very, very center, and he's kind of like in this frozen lake, and he has three heads, and he's chewing on three of the worst sinners, you know, according to Dante, the three worst sinners, right? And it's Brutus.
Right.
It's Brutus who killed Caesar. Cassius, who you know, conspired to kill Caesar and also killed Caesar, and then Judas. Right. And so you have the person who betrayed their best friend, the person who betrayed their country, and the person who betrayed their Lord.
Right.
So and I think like two of them are like feet first or head first, and the other one is different, right? Probably Judas is the different one,
right?
But okay, so I wasn't even going there, because Dante was he had a bone to pick with a certain group of people in the deepest circle of hell. Apparently, he's reserved that for usurers. Do you know what a usurer is?
I do. That's not very nice, Dante.
Well, actually, what is your definition of usury?
So usury is the giving out of loans at high interest, or sometimes people just say interest at all. Yeah.
So basically, people who charged interest.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, Keenan, Dante was in debt. And he wrote his little fan fiction. He's like, I hate these guys and I hate these guys, and and he's putting them in the levels of hell, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, but anyway,
and also this really hot chick is there, and she loves me.
Folks, go back and read Dante's Inferno, but read it with the understanding that like Dante didn't know what's in hell, so he's just putting people that he really doesn't like in different levels of hell. It's like, yeah, and this guy has to eat mud for all eternity. Yeah. and that guy who looked at me funny.
Yeah. and Beatrice, who is, my love, like, but she never knew him in real life. It's like, I think everyone has just like a crush. You get crushes on like baristas, or like they made my coffee super special for me and they love me so much and I'm never going to talk to them. Right. It's like, that's what Beatrice is to Dante.
Oh, Beatrice. Oh boy. Yeah. So okay, let's get out of the Dante trap.
And we're back in just the regular hell trap.
Just the regular hell trap.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, but I wanted to talk about this. So like the idea that, according to the theology, before Jesus, like everybody, so including Adam, Moses, Abraham, David, right? They're all in hell. And that got me thinking, Keenan, like with all of those people, those patriarchs, is this just another way that the church was sticking it to the Jewish people, being like, hey, all of your patriarchs and all of your holy people like Moses and Abraham and
Solomon
and Solomon,
Noah,
right? They also went to like we respect them too, and we honor them, and we venerate them too. But also, they went to hell because they weren't Christian, and Jesus had to go down there and get them out.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, I think that's this is a whole other thing, obviously, a problem in Christianity. But it does seem to set up the idea that the Jews are worse than pagans, right? Because the Jews, the idea of like Jews having killed Christ, which is this whole thing that's worse than pagans who never knew Christ. The Jews were given the option to know Christ and they didn't. So there's all this extra hatred for them.
Right. Which I never understood also because like if you
it's all nonsense. It's all anti-Semitism. Yeah. I want to be sure people know that we know that that's all anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. But here's again, like I think we've talked about it on the show before, folks, right? Like you get a religious text and you put it into the hands of people who want to use it, against other people. They want to put other people down. They want to subjugate them. They want to, for them, it was like a happy accident that someone translated Moses into having horns. It's like, hey, we can use this. So this is our ammunition that we can like say that, Christians are better than Jews. It like, again, people just, this is why we can't have nice things. People ruin stuff all the time. So this idea, right, back to, everybody going to hell, right? Foundational concept in the theology is alluded to all over the place, but never like directly mentioned, right? The idea that we're saved by Jesus from hell.
Right.
Back, like, when I was growing up, going to church and, Christmas and Easter and realizing like that when I was a kid, I didn't quite understand the magnitude of like, oh, Savior, right? Like, and that's why everyone's happy. Like, and folks, I really hope I'm not offending anyone. I grew up Catholic. I still consider myself like what I refer to as like my mom's version of Catholic or my grandma's version of Catholic. So the stuff that I'm saying right now and the jokey way that I'm saying it and the stuff that I'm about to say, I hope it doesn't offend anyone out there. This is just kind of like, my take on it, my human take on it. Right.
I grew up Catholic and I'm an atheist and I hope we are offending everyone. Fuck y'all.
Oh. Well, there we go. See, you get both points of view here, right?
No, I love you. I love you all. I'm just joking.
Yeah. This is a jokey podcast. We make jokes. Yay. Yeah. Okay. So, and again, I don't know how I missed it growing up as a Christian. Like the first things you are told about Jesus is that A, he loves you, unconditionally loves you, right? And B, he died for your sins. And depending on what type of Christian household you were brought up in, one of those things is going to be impressed upon you more than the other. I was lucky enough to grow up with the love part being stressed like over and over, right? He loves you the way you are, just the way you are. That's how he made you. Your sins are bad, but you are not bad. You are loved. And you should try to have that love for your neighbor. And your neighbor is everyone, whether they live next door or in another country, have different color skin, practice different religion, practice no religion. Your neighbor is everyone, full stop. And that was Catholicism as I understood it, right? Growing up, that was mom's and grandma's Catholicism. And then I get older and I learn about the Catholic Church doing and saying a lot of things. And I'm like, well, that's not Catholic. That's not what I learned. What's this like, racist, sexist, anti-Semitic, homophobic, anti-pagan, anti-atheist. There's so many antis. Like, where's all the love? Where's all the stuff that like I know is real? Because this is all fan fiction, right? This is the made up part. This is humans adding stuff, for like a selfish agenda. This is putting words in God's mouth, right? including the whole thing about how like God loves you so much, but if you step out of line, he's going to send you to hell for all eternity. That was when I was like, okay, this does not compute. Like I would like a second opinion, please. And actually, I got it. Keenan, I told you about Father James Earl Jones, right? Warning us about like, taking the Bible too literally.
No, it
right?
didn't. No, it didn't necessarily have an arc, and there wasn't necessarily a great flood. Yeah.
Right. 2 by 2 and all that stuff. Right. And I mentioned another priest, and I said we'd get to him eventually. He was our main priest at our church growing up. Right. I think he was like the deacon. And I'm not going to use his name here because I'm not 100% sure if what I'm about to say will get him in trouble. But let's call him Father Fezzik because he looked and sounded exactly like Wallace Shawn's character in Princess Bride.
Yeah.
It's like the inconceivable guy, right? Like, folks, if you don't know, it's like, the Sicilian, right? But yeah, so this is the story of when my Catholic priest, Father Fezzik, basically told me there was no hell. So I'm in middle school. I think actually maybe around Reagan's age. And I set up a meeting with Father Fezzik as a counselor, right? Like a spiritual guide because I'm dealing with some like heavy thoughts and I don't know what to do. So I meet with him in his office, not on a Sunday, not at Mass, just in his office. And he asks me what's wrong. And I don't want to say, I don't want to admit to like all the stuff that's like going on in my head. So I say it this way. I say, Father Fezzik, I'm pretty sure I'm going to hell. Now, folks, I didn't say I'm worried I'm going to go to hell. I was past that. I was afraid. Yes, I was terrified. But I was also already in that despair that we talk about so much on this show. I was pretty sure that the thoughts I was thinking and the feelings I was feeling meant I was going to hell. And that was just it. And Father Fezzik looked at me and he sort of chuckled and said, no, you're not. So I'm telling you that my Catholic priest, Father Wallace Shawn, Father Fezzik, I said to him, Father, I'm going to hell. And he replied with, inconceivable. Right? And I sort of just like blinked. And then my next reaction was anger for some reason. I was like, well, how do you know? And he gets up. And he goes to his bookshelf and he comes back with a copy of the Bible, the King James Bible, repeat offender on this show. And he pushes it across the desk to me and he says, I want you to find hell in there. And so I look. I start in the Old Testament and boom, I find it and I point to it. And he looks over and he says, yeah, that's a mistranslation. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, that's the Hebrew Bible, originally in ancient Hebrew. And the word that is supposed to be in there is Sheol. Sheol is the place that the Hebrews believed all people went when they died. It's not a punishment. It's not, all fire and brimstone. It's a resting place. It's a place of waiting because they believe that the Messiah, the Messiah, hasn't come yet. It might even be a metaphor for the grave. Some scholars have argued that, but it's not hell.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, Father, I see your game. So I flip to the New Testament. And sure enough, I find another mention of hell. It's the King James Bible. It's not hard to do. So I'm like, there, right there. And even back then, I remember things like, why am I happy about this? Why am I proud of this? But he looks over again and he's like, oh yeah, that's also a mistranslation. That was originally in Aramaic. And that word was Gehenna. And I'm like, okay, so they call it Gehenna, big deal. And he's like, yeah, it is a big deal because Gehenna's an actual place in the world geographically. You can hop on a plane and you can go to Jerusalem and you can see it. It's like a flower garden now. But back in the day, back in Jesus's time, it just so happened to be the city garbage dump. On the outskirts of Jerusalem, people would throw their garbage onto this huge pile, this huge mountain of garbage called Gehenna. And there was so much garbage that sometimes they would set it on fire just to burn it all away. And the flames would burn day and night. And you'd look out your window at this burning mountain and you'd get chills because it looks kind of spooky and supernatural and otherworldly. It's literally a mountain of fire, right? Now get this. It was also the final resting place of criminals. So if you were a criminal, if you were executed, if you were beheaded, if you were crucified, you didn't get an honorable Jewish burial. You didn't get an honorable Roman burial. Your remains were just tossed into Gehenna. So everyone in Jerusalem understood it was a place that you didn't want to end up, the final resting place for people who disobeyed the law. Now, remember, Jesus and his disciples were not exactly on good terms with the authorities, right? They were constantly getting the Pharisees mad, the Sanhedrin, the Romans had to keep stepping in. They were being noticed.
They were traitors and they were blasphemes.
Right, according to the Pharisees, according to like religious authorities and everything like that, right? So they were kind of outlaws, and they were on notice, right? They were like I'm watching you, right? And so Jesus was like, guys, teach my teachings, spread my word, but be cool about it, right? Don't cause unnecessary trouble. Work within the system. Render unto Caesar if you have to. Don't get violent. Don't start a riot, because if you do, I'm looking at you, Peter, chopping ears off. You might end up in Gehenna.
Right? Put that ear back so you don't end up in Gehenna.
Right, yeah. So, and he's saying, teach and lead by example, not by fear. Kind of ironic, given how today, 2,000 years later, some folks use hell specifically as a scare tactic, right? When maybe that wasn't the original intention. And it was here that I looked at my priest and I was like, Father, are you telling me there's no hell? And he's like, absolutely not. But I think now we need to talk about what's really bothering you, what's going on at home, all that stuff. And so we talked, and I told him how recently I'd just been really angry, really frustrated, a lot of intrusive thoughts. Looking back, probably puberty had something to do with it, right? It was that time, right? Your body and your brain are just like a perfect storm of shittiness, right? As you change and you readjust. And, school, like you said, Keenan, middle school is relentless, right? It's merciless. And I feel so bad for my middle school students. I'm like, God, you guys are running the gauntlet right now, right? And they expect you to do math and history on top of that, right? And I told Father Fezzik about fights I was having at home and with my mom, with my dad. And I told him about one I had just had, the fight that had actually brought me here to his office. And he asks, so how do you feel? And I say, awful, terrible, like the worst person in the world. Like, I'm a terrible person. I don't deserve my family. I don't deserve what I have. And I feel so bad. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I feel like I can never be happy again. I feel like, and he said, you feel like you're in hell. And I was like, yeah. And he was like, yeah. And he points to his head and to his heart and he says, hell does exist, but it's not a place, and we don't have to stay there forever. There are people we can go to. There are places we can go to. Church is one of them. It's one of them. But there are other places that you can also go to, that you should also go to if you feel like you need help. Don't ever think that God wants you to be in that place. It's a place we all fall into sometimes, but it's not punishment. It's not permanent. And never think that you're alone in your fight to get back out.
Jeez.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for letting me, tell that story. Father Fezzik is one of the reasons I'm still keeping my faith, even though I guess I don't have a very conventional view of the whole thing. But yeah, sorry, we got way sidetracked.
That's not atypical from some of the ways that the 1600s, not necessarily theologians, but people like John Bunyan, who wrote The Pilgrim's Progress, writes about earth as being hell, and it's right. Earthiness as being separate from godliness. Some people have argued that hell doesn't exist. Yeah, hell is not a real place, but it is. It is whatever is the opposite of God. The lack of God is hell. One is light, one is dark.
Yeah. And we're going to see, later in this movie even, right, a priest, a Catholic priest, a Jesuit priest. He's like, most educated Catholics don't even believe in the devil, right? Right. So it's it almost seems like we're moving in a direction of having it be, a concept or a state of mind or something like that, right? And that's sort of for those people who, like me, they were struggling with that weird paradox of a loving a parental God that loves you, but then also punishes you in this horrible eternal way. It makes more sense if it's oh no, it's it's a state of mind that we kind of slip into, right? On our own, and it's mankind's job to help your neighbor out of that, right? And it's it's one of the struggles of life, right? Rather than this afterlife prison punishment thing that was used as a scare tactic, ages and ages ago, and still today, yeah. But anyway, sorry, we got way sidetracked. But maybe not, because that story occurred to me while watching this minute. And to bring it back now, right? Like, let's get back to this minute. So climbing out of hell. We're back in this minute. And we look at Karis, and we look at what he's going through personally. And in this scene, he's literally descending deeper and deeper into this literal hell, right? This hospital is hell. And it mirrors the story of the harrowing of hell, right? Where Jesus descends to save the lost souls and bring them out of hell. Karis is descending to save his mother. But here's the sad part, folks. Even before Karis entered that hospital, Karis was already in hell. In his mind and in his heart, he was already there. So how can he expect to save his mother? But for now, right, let's take a look back at the top of this scene, and we can actually look at the visuals and look at what's going on in this minute.
Right. It's interesting because in the screenplay, we have it a little bit different than what we end up in the film. So in the screenplay, which again, it's all out of order, right? The movie ends up being this cut back and forth between Chris's problems and Damien's problems. In the original script, this scene that we see here is right after his conversation with Mary. So after he's gone to visit Mary in her house, then we stay with Damien, and then we get really soon after that the scene where he's going to Bellevue. So we haven't had time to sort of think about. Yeah, we haven't had time to think about. Oh, you know, is that moment where he visits Mary and she makes him dinner and they have this conversation? Is that going to work? We know right afterwards, basically, like within a minute, that it doesn't work.
Huh.
Yeah. And so the camera is talked about here in the screenplay. It says, interior hall at Bellevue Hospital day. The camera is fixed at one end of the hall, and Karis and Uncle are approaching from far down the opposite end. However, their dialogue is clearly audible at all times, and their voices metallically reverberate. Right. So as Blatty is originally conceiving it, he's written it, again, in a very visual way, but the camera stays on one side of the hallway, and Father Karis and his uncle are coming towards us gradually.
Right.
So they start off very small, and they get closer to us. Right. In the film itself, we start on the door with the two of them coming in this two shot. And then they approach us, and it becomes a single of the uncle. And then we're going to cut back and forth between singles of the uncle and of Damien. Right. So we don't get to see that they're small. We are thinking about their problems. You know, it's subjective. We're with them, as opposed to sort of objectively looking at them. And it does get closer to your idea, right? We are with them as they are approaching hell and as they're harrowing. Yeah. And then one other thing that's really cool about it is on Damien's side, because we're in this hallway with a bunch of little rooms with them, with the light coming in. Maybe it's sunlight, maybe it's not. But as Damien is approaching and walking closer and closer to the end of the hallway, the light is changing on him constantly. So he's in darkness and he's in light. He's in darkness. He's in light. He's in darkness. He's in light. Yeah. And it gives us the sense that he is, what's the word? How would you describe Damien here? He's
fluctuating, or struggling.
Yeah, these are good words. Harrowing.
Harrowing. There we go.
Yeah. Whatever that is, right? Like he is, he's beset. He's fluctuating. I like that. And
so the light and the darkness are battling
with him.
For ownership of him.
Right. And then we get these shots of these poor patients at Bellevue outside of the nurses' station.
Oh my God.
Yeah, pretty rough shots there. Yeah, and I like that. So as opposed to them being small at the end and getting larger, and we gradually figure out their problems. We're with their problems at the very beginning. And we hear from the uncle that it's edema that is affecting her brain. So the problems with her leg are causing her mental problems.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't even, here's how ignorant I am. I didn't even know that a leg problem like edema could do that.
I don't know. How accurate that is, but I don't have a lot of medical training as well. But yeah, when I was a kid, I heard this story about this Olympic gymnast who had an embolism in her leg, which is different. That's a blood clot.
Okay.
And that it caused her heart attack. You know, she was like 22 years old, the height of her physical prowess, right? And then she breaks her leg or sprained it or something. So there was a blood clot, and that goes into her heart, you know. And so that scares the crap out of me all the time.
Wow.
So they warn you about that. But so an edema is a swelling, so it'd be a fluid that's affecting that area. So I don't know. Someone who has more medical training can tell us, but that's at least the uncle's idea. Yeah, that it's this swelling, and the uncle is giving him all this blame, right? Without necessarily meaning to. That, if we had taken care of that small problem, she wouldn't have gone crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Uncle. Well, I mean, he doesn't have a name.
He doesn't have a name here,
just call him Uncle Tito.
Uncle Tito.
And we'll talk about him in the next.
That
minute.
Guilt. That's what Uncles is for.
Yep, that's what Uncles is for. Ah, boy. Okay. Well, fun minute today. Or I hope it was. I hope it was interesting, folks. But I think so. Did we have anything else, Keenan?
No, I think we got a whole lot. We fell into a couple of traps in a row.
And luckily we got out of them. I think our characters are still in them.
Oh no, they're trapped in there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're yeah. So we'll just have to keep on making these episodes and hope that they get out. But also, yes, folks, we now have a listener group for the show on Facebook. It's called Compelling Conversations, an Exorcist Minute listener group. It's a private group, but just request to join and we'll let you in. And then you can be in here with us. And you can talk about the movie, interact with us, and also fellow fans, post questions, polls, memes, all that stuff. And of course, as always, if you'd like to leave us a message, our email is theexorcistminute@gmail.com, all one word, and we'll be sure to read it. Lastly, if you like the show and you want to help us out, the best thing that you can do for a new podcast that's just starting out is to leave a 5-star review, and that'll help us. That'll help other people find us, and we can keep growing this cool community. All right, so Keenan, are you thinking what I'm thinking?
I think I am, Lester.
Folks, until next time. The power of Totoro compels you.
He's my favorite neighbor.
Yes. Right? And you got to love your neighbor too. Right?
Oh yeah.
Right? That's what it says in the Bible. Love thy neighbor Totoro.
Love thy neighbor Totoro as if he were yourself.
Yes. Right? But actually, he's the god of death.